Welcome back, guys. I'm Scarlett from Miss Money, and if you aren't adding BNGO shares to your portfolio, you're missing out on some potential for huge gains. We'll dive into some bullish news surrounding BNGO's technology and get into the nitty-gritty. Before we do, real quick, like this video and subscribe to the channel with push notifications turned on so you're up to date on the latest info to maximize your gains as soon as a video drops. Investors had high hopes for BNGO in the first few weeks of the year. The company highlighted the progress and strengths of its optical genome mapping technology at a 5-day symposium. Then BNGO raised $335 million in operations, including public stock offerings. As a result, the stock soared more than 400% from the start of the year through a peak in February. Since, the shares have dropped more than 50%. Now, the question is whether the share performance we saw a few weeks ago was an exception or whether this genome analysis company may produce steady gains over the long term. Let's take a closer look at the situation right now and what's ahead. BNGO specializes in OGM using its Sapphire analysis system. In genome analysis, OGM allows researchers to find large structural variations. This is an important step in testing for genetic diseases. Is next-generation sequencing a rival technology? Not necessarily. Sequencing detects small variants, but often misses these important larger ones. So it's fair to say OGM and sequencing are complementary. But here's some really big news. So BNGO announced the adoption of its Sapphire system for optical genome mapping by 2 large laboratories belonging to the National Health System of the UK, King's College Hospital in London, and the NHS Regional Genetics Laboratory in Belfast City Hospital have adopted Sapphire systems through the company's Regent Rental program, which entails a commitment to purchase consumables over time in connection with the placement of a system. So both sites are using Sapphire. The site in Belfast will also evaluate Sapphire for the detection of structural variants of patients with development delay, infertility, rare disease, and other genetic diseases as well. So this is huge bullish news and just indicates the more thought leadership that BNGO is establishing right now in the industry. Dr. Anwar Al-Haq, lead clinical scientist and deputy clinical director for NHS Hematology and Pathology at King's College Hospital, London, said, "Timely identification of genome structural variants is vital for providing diagnostic, prognostic, and treatment decisions for hematological malignancies." The Southeast Hematological Malignancy Diagnostic Service, based at King's College Hospital, currently uses a combination of techniques such as karyotyping, fluorescence in situ hybridization, and SNP arrays to provide a comprehensive analysis of all cytogenetic aberrations. These techniques are expensive, labor-intensive, and require a diverse and skilled workforce. Dr. Al-Haq added, "A number of other pilot studies have already demonstrated the clinical validity of OGM for identifying SVs in both acquired and constitutional abnormalities. We are undertaking a pilot validation study of the Sapphire system to introduce a single automated cytogenetic workflow providing high-resolution analysis of the genome in a timely manner, ultimately to benefit patient outcomes. We hope that this will ultimately replace the need for the wide range of cytogenetic methods currently used in diagnostic laboratories and will lead to a quicker turnaround time with better defined SV data." So yes, we've seen that BNGO has kind of taken a dip here below $6, but I think right now is the perfect time as BNGO really starts to establish that thought leadership and become that leader in the industry. Coronavirus weighed on the genomic testing market last year as some labs temporarily reduced operations. BNGO's full-year revenue fell 16% to $8.5 million, and the company's net loss did widen. Even in this context, though, BNGO showed growth. The company's installs of the Sapphire system increased by 24 to a total of 97 last year, and BNGO's acquisition of Lineagen helped it increase fourth quarter revenue by 43% to $4 million. The Lineagen business offers diagnostic testing for neurodevelopment disorders. With this acquisition and BNGO's Sapphire, it looks like growth is in its early stages and there's a lot more to come. In BNGO's earnings call, the company offered a timeline of plans for this year. In the third quarter, the company plans on launching prenatal assays and broadening its selection of pediatric assays. One of BNGO's priorities is building up the number of published studies showing Sapphire's capabilities. It expects results from pediatric clinical studies in the fourth quarter. This should help BNGO sign on new customers and encourage reimbursement by third-party payers in the US. Also in the fourth quarter, BNGO aims to complete its prototype of a next-generation Sapphire. The goal is to serve both community cytogenetics labs and higher throughput operating labs. This will result in a 14-fold increase in the number of Sapphire analyzed genomes per year. The company also expects more Sapphire installs this year. It forecasts a 50% year-over-year increase to 150 systems. BNGO says the prenatal and pediatric market totals about $3.5 billion. As more and more tests are routinely performed on newborns, it's easy to imagine this figure rising dramatically. At this level, the shares are trading for less than even Wall Street's lowest 12-month share price estimate. In fact, the average estimate calls for the stock to climb more than 100% over the coming 12 months. So here is your indicator that this stock is here to stay. Investors got ahead of themselves when they pushed BNGO up 7-fold in a short period of time earlier this year. But I don't think the stock's gains are over. They're far from over. As I said earlier, BNGO is only in the beginning of its story. The efforts the company is making today should pay off in the long term. And if you check out my other videos on BNGO, you know I'm bullish here for the long term. BNGO's Sapphire genome mapping device detects large structural variations and aberrations in chromosomes, which is something that standard gene sequencers can't do. That enables the Sapphire to reliably diagnose tricky neurodevelopment disorders caused by structural variations, which the equipment made by other companies can't, a major competitive advantage for BNGO. So right now, the company's unique hardware is being used to research conditions such as Alzheimer's disease, leukemia, COVID-19, and ALS. Management calculates that its total target markets are as large as $3.8 billion. That includes one-off sales of hardware plus the consumables required to run each test. Recurring revenue from consumables could eventually amount to as much as $1.5 billion each year. BNGO current trailing revenue is a mere $7.3 million, so it has plenty of room to grow. One thing to keep in mind is that healthcare systems are accustomed to doing the same tests as the Sapphire via several different laboratory workflows. Each of these workflows require different equipment and regions, not to mention trained personnel. While the Sapphire is an improvement because it unites these workflows into one, thereby saving time and, potentially money, it may be a tough sell to customers who don't see problem with the status quo. That may help explain why BNGO's revenue dropped by more than 33% year over year in 2020's third quarter. But here's the thing, guys. BNGO is a pioneer in this relatively new market, and at least for the time being, it faces no direct competition for its primary product. Plus, its machines could save a lot of work for resource-strapped healthcare systems. This all points to a company with a compelling growth story to tell, and I think that the stock will do well over the next few years. So obviously, have caution, diversify your portfolio, but I am very confident that BNGO is going to do incredibly well in the long term and really shake things up for the healthcare industry as a whole, as a pioneer. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm Scarlett from Miss Money, and catch me next time.